pointed out in multiple locations and gave a specific requirement. It is crucial for us to win this battle against this epidemic. And Hubei and Wuhan are the central battlefield. According to General Secretary Xi Jinping, if Wuhan can win, Hubei will win this battle. If Hubei can win, the whole country will gain victory. So under the instruction of General Secretary Xi Jinping and the Central Party Committee, the leading group chaired by Vice Premier Sun Chunlan arrived here in Wuhan on January the 27th. From the moment of arrival, Ms. Sun and the other members of the leading group join all of you to work day and night under very severe circumstances. We have put all of our hearts and soul into work despite the dangers that is faced with us, and in order to discover problems and make sure that all of the policies and measures can be implemented first place. And the flag of the CPC has always been flying in all of the occasions. We arrive here to tell you all that the city of Wuhan is not an isolated island. You are not fighting alone. General Secretary Xi Jinping and the Central Party Committee have always been standing with all of you in Hubei and in Wuhan. We are hands in hands and shoulder by shoulder, and we breathe the same air, and we share the same destiny. The city of Wuhan belongs to the Hubei province as well as China, so all Chinese citizens, will join all of you to guard your homeland and guard this home that is shared by us all. We will spare no efforts to curb the transmission of the epidemic and win this battle against COVID-19. This is a general action pulled by all the population and the people's war that we have to win. At the front line, it is truly a battleground. All the medical workers spare no efforts to save the patients despite the risks, despite the fact that they cannot join their families for spring festivals. And we have a lot of medical workers that come from all over the country in assistance of their Hubei colleagues. They are like fighting soldiers that answers to the nation's call, and they're rushing to the front line with all the courages that they have. From 29 provinces and regions, as well as army, more than 30,000 medical workers have already arrived at Wuhan and Hubei, and they are now working alongside their comrades at the front line without hesitation, without recession, without tears. Even at the most difficult time where the medical supplies were in shortage, they are working 6 hours per shift to save the medical supplies. Some of them even wears diapers in order to race against time and fight against the virus and pass on the baton of life. They are the most beautiful and lovely people of our times. Since the outbreak, the journalists also have continued your work despite the risks of getting infected, providing objective and comprehensive perspective of fighting the virus and the facts about the disease. Dear friends from the press, with your pen and the paper, with your cameras and your microphones, you have shown the world a China that has never succumbed and is doomed to prevail. On behalf of the leading group, on behalf of Vice Premier Sun Chunlan, I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to all of you for your hard work. There's a saying that expresses there's no winter that will not pass, there's no spring that will not come. The Chinese people is a great people, and our nation is a great nation. Faced with the harsh challenges that is the disease, as long as we can gather around the Central Party Committee headed by General Secretary Xi Jinping and fight this battle with the courage and unity that we have, we will prevail in the end and win this people's war in the end. The warm spring is about to come. Last but not least, my sincere thanks goes to all the cadres and people in Wuhan, Hubei, for acting according to the instructions of the Central Party Committee and making great contribution to the prevention control of this epidemic. You have spared unimaginable efforts and make unimaginable sacrifices. My special thanks goes to the medical workers who have been working day and night endlessly and without pauses even. Some of them even get infected and even have lost their lives. And their spirit is noble and be sure for us to remember. So on behalf of the leading group, my sincere gratitude to all of the goes to all of the people that is working in the front line, and my condolences goes to all the lives that have lost in this fight against this disease. Please all rise in a moment of silence. Now, Mr. Liang Weiliang, please. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends from the press, good afternoon. The Central Party Committee and the State Council have been following closely the update of the epidemic in Wuhan and Hubei. The entire nation and the overseas Chinese have also shown their concerns and support for us. Since the outbreak, the medical supplies was once the biggest gap that constrained the treatment of the patient and that threats the safety of the medical workers. The Central Party Committee have attached great importance to this, and General Secretary Xi Jinping reiterated in multiple occasions that all of the most needed resources has to go to the frontline workers for the salvation of life and treatment of patients. And according to Premier Li Keqiang, we need to mobilize national resources and prioritize the demand of Wuhan and Hubei in terms of materials as well as human resources and guarantee the daily necessities of the residents. The leading group also acted upon the instructions of the State Council and Central Party Committee and have give priority to the safety and health of the affected region's residents. Pull all resources in trends and mobilize all resources possible to ensure the sufficient supply. With joint effort, the much needed medical resources are now in are not sufficient, and so is the daily necessities for the residents. In terms of medical supplies, and we can now meet the basic need for the front line, thanks to the joint prevention control mechanism at the central level, in order to pull and mobilize all the resources to give priority to the demand of Hubei and Wuhan. And a lot of enterprises answer to the call of the Party Central Committee and State Council and restore working and production as soon as they can. And many of them have been shifting their production productivity in order to kick up the capacity. And third, we also need to thank the overseas Chinese for their donations and other overseas powers for their donations. And fourth is all of the people who are working in oppositions, as well including the Friends from the Press for using the medical protective materials in a scientific and conservative way. And fifth, we also need to thank the mechanism for a flexible processes in terms of the handling of these materials and transfer of these materials. But we know and fully understand that according to the requirement to admit all that should be meted, we are still running in short supply in terms of medical materials and hospital beds. In terms of category, there are still some structural problems. Different medical institutions also have some short supply, and after this control measures, in many places, it has made it inconvenient for residents to purchase food and grocery, and we have also encountered some shortages in parts of the daily necessities in the market. So according to the requirement of Premier Sun Chunlan, we also have established this daily report mechanism in terms of daily necessities as well as medical resources, and address the problems on the spot it was discovered. We also work with the medical teams and key hospitals to know more about their difficulties and help them to resolve these issues as soon as possible. With the strong leadership of Central Party Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, as well as support of the State Council, the confirmed cases in places outside Hubei has been decreasing for 16 days in a row, and all of this can create a favorable condition for the more sufficient supply of medical resources in the province of Hubei, and we are confident to do our work better in the future in order to finally win this people's war in the end. Now, Ms. Yu Yanhong, please. Friends from the press, good afternoon. Central Party Committee and the State Council attach great importance to the prevention control of the epidemic. And General Xi Jinping has pointed out that we need to further prioritize the treatment plan and stick to the integrated treatment plan and perfect the mechanism to treat severe condition patients and critical cases. Premier Li Keqiang also pointed out that during the treatment, TCM should be considered as an important part in the treatment plan. We have organized 278 teams and altogether more than 30,000 people who rushed to Hubei in assistance. And we attach to the integrated treatment plan in order to upgrade the recovery rate. Premier Sun Chunlan also have been in charge and urging the combination of TCM in the rescue effort. So first of all, we have organized national power to carry out systematic treatment, and we've been working with the major authorities to do unified coordination at a national level. More than 3,000 medical workers have rushed to Hubei and forms 4 teams of TCM experts in Jintan Hospital, Leshinshan Hospital, and the TCM Hospital of Hubei, as well as one of the field mobile hospitals, and they've been involved in clinical practices as well as consultation and give important instructions in terms of TCM, and have given treatment plan and have been included in the national treatment plan through edition 3 to 6. And second, the combination of TCM and Western medicine can improve the recovery rate as well as reduce the fatality rate. This is an important mechanism that we have established to be implemented in the isolated locations, and we have built 15 panels of experts and have made contracted arrangement to treat patients during Lyme syndrome and do rounds. In each field mobile hospital, we have arranged deployed 2 to 3 TCM experts to participate in treatment and consult. We also have formed 12 integrated medicine panel of experts to do survey and do rounds and make integrated plans. In the Tongji Hospital, the Lung Hospital, and Leishan Hospital, and the other designated hospital, the consultation between Western medicine and TCM medicine mechanism has been established. Now we have made a lot of progress in terms of the depth and width of TCM's involvement, and the TCM and Western medicine has been working hands in hand to discover a lot of prescriptions that is proven to be useful in clinical practices. And coming up, we'll continue to push forward these integrated treatment methods in order to better safeguard people's safety and health. Thank you, Ms. Yu. And now the floor is open to questions. And the reporters will be asking questions through telephone, through videos, and please identify yourself first. With CMG and CCTV, the central leading group has been arriving at Wuhan for over a month. So what are the work that you have been doing, and what is your future plan of working? According to the requirement of the Central Party Committee, our major responsibilities are as follows. First is to supervise the prevention and control measures of Hubei and Wuhan in terms of acting according to General Secretary Xi Jinping's instruction, as well as the central leading group's requirement, and make sure that all the tasks have been fulfilled, and that see to it that we finally win this battle. And second is to guide the provinces and to strengthen the capacity of fighting this disease. We come here to coordinate some of the affairs that they do not have the power to handle, especially logistics and human resources, as well as technical support. Third, we come here as a power of supervision, and especially those that have been those malpractices or inaction, and think we will give the maximum penalty to such behaviors. Under the leadership of Vice Premier Sun Chunlan, we've been working here for more than 20 days. So we've been working around the three major tasks that I've just mentioned, and these are our major duties here. These are our three main tasks: prevention control, curb the origin, and cut the transmission paths. And treat the patients, and the guarantee of supplies. So these are the aspects that we've been working on from day one. But the priorities of these matters might differ from time to time. But there are two key points that remains unchanged. The first key point is the city of Wuhan. That is the epicenter of this disease. So it has to be get under control so as to prevent further spreading of the disease. And second key point, Wuhan being the capital of the province has more materials than the other surrounding cities in Wuhan, and their awareness and capacity are lacking compared to the capital, that is Wuhan. So when epidemic began to spread in these cities, the situation might easily get out of control. So our other priority or key working task is to prevent the second Wuhan from emerging. So that is some of our major considerations. So center around all the major tasks, we have done the following work. First is to strengthen the control of the source of infection and cut the path of transmission. It is known to all as an infectious disease. Whatever treatment measures you use, the most important measure is, or the most economically friendly measure is to isolate the population. But before the epidemic developed to a certain point, the society might not understand a lot of the control measures, such as the closing down of the city, and people may think that we are making too much a big deal out of it. After the arrival of Vice Premier Sun Chunlan, and also as the leader of the Central Leading Group, she has done two important deployments in terms of work. On January the 22nd, that is December 28th, in the lunar calendar, Vice Premier Sun came to Wuhan to supervise prevention control of the epidemic, and she acted upon General Secretary Xi Jinping's instructions. So when she came here, she made two decisions. First of all, as is known to all, is the lockdown of the city. That is an action under the instruction of General Secretary. So this is a important measure to prevent the outward transmission, further transmission, in order to protect the disease from spreading to wider range in the country. And second is the extension of Spring Festival holiday. So when the whole leading group arrived at Wuhan, it was on the January the 3rd or 4th of the lunar calendar. So at that time, we held meetings and then reported to the State Council for approval, and that is the decision. Another decision we have made, that is to extend the Spring Festival holiday. As is known to all, Wuhan and Hubei have extended the Spring Festival for another 10 days, which is rare in other places in China. So not only do the people in Wuhan needs to be kept at home for isolation, all of the people who are at that time in Wuhan, even if they came from other places around the country, are kept in Wuhan. So this is a comprehensive lockdown of all the passages out of the city. So this is the requirement to prevent the disease from spreading further to other places, also to prevent the spreading inside the city and the province. That is a special time, and it's not easy for us to make these decisions. But with the instruction of the Central Party Committee, we finally made this commitment despite what other people say. We have people discussed that it's okay to have some disagreements in a society, and I think we have to identify the most important tasks before us. And second is to make sure that all the much needed materials can be sufficiently supplied. Upon arrival of our leading group on January the 3rd or 4th of the lunar calendar, we found that many medical supplies are in shortage, especially protective suits, which is a hinder to the rescue and treatment work. So each day, the daily demand is about 50,000 protective suits, but the supply each day is only 10,000. So that's far from enough. Without enough supply, the treatment work cannot be pushed forward in a smooth manner. So we have to do this mobilization of national resources as well as import. So on the 4th or the 5th, Premier Sun Chunlan led a group herself to go to Xinzhou to do investigation in the protective suits manufacturers called Xiezu. And Wenqian, or Winner, in the city of Xiantao, she discussed with the company leaders and asked them to recommence their work as soon as possible, to invite back with high salary back those staff members, and the country will also give subsidies to make up for the overtime fees that they have to give to the workers. So work in this regard has been kick-start in a timely fashion. And third is to strengthen the effort to treat the confirmed cases. And we found a regional pandemic, actually, in the city of Wuhan. There are regional multiple points, outbreak points in the city. There's a large number of patients discovered in Wuhan. We were so anxious and we felt painful because at that time we simply do not have the capacity to admit all of those patients. We do not have enough hospital beds. Faced with that situation, the leading group has organized powers to come to rescue and raced against time to strengthen treatment. So there were 8 teams that were deployed to Wuhan. That is the first group from Union Hospital, Tongji Hospital, and Renmin Hospital to treat the critical cases. And then the construction of Huoshinshan and Leishinshan Hospital to treat the severe cases. And then the categorized treatment of all the patients. So we have suspected cases and close contact, as well as suspected cases. They have to be categorized first and be administrated according to different requirements. And first is the integrated medicine of TCM and Western medicine. Fourth aspect is to build 11 field mobile hospitals that accommodate more than 8,000 patients. We also have established 400 isolation locations. The reason why we build these field mobile hospital is the short supply of hospital beds. Despite the many hospitals that we have in Wuhan, the standard of infections disease hospital is a lot different than general hospitals. That is generally known as 3 regions and 2 passageways. That's why we have to build field mobile hospitals to do collective treatment of the light syndrome patients. And fifth is the final battle, which starts on February the 8th, 9th. There are a lot of confirmed cases or suspected cases that have gone back to the society because there were not enough beds to accommodate them, which is unacceptable because they might become new sources of infection. They have to be admitted in hospitals or in isolated quarantine locations. So according to the instruction of the General Secretary, we raised the requirement to admit all of those that should be admitted, so that's when we began this general screening of the entire population and make sure that no one's left unchecked. And fourth is to check upon the epidemiology of this disease and to make judgment about its development trend. And last but not least is to establish accountability mechanism to make sure that governments of all levels are held accountable, be it a region or a city or a province. You have to have hospitals, you have isolation spots. If you cannot do this, you need to ask help from upper level government. And all the departments also need to do their own job well, including the health department, the IT department. And for the other working units, as well as including governments and society and the companies need to take their own responsibility. And last but not least is the individual responsibility. Be responsible for yourself and your families. coming up, we will further consolidate some of the temporary achievement that we have made so far, and continue to urge Hubei and Wuhan to take important measures to prevent the disease from further spreading, cut the source of infection, and strengthen treatment as well as logistics. Treatment is now central. We have more than 3,000 patients that are in hospital, among which about 1,000 to 2,000 are critical cases or severe cases. We must make sure to reduce fatality and improve recovery rate.
你好，我是从事塔斯社的记者。湖北省感染的人中有没有俄罗斯人和别的外国人
？Whether foreign citizens that are infected in Hubei province, do you have a number for me? Can you tell us what nationalities are they, and what kind of assistance does the Chinese government provide to them? For the confirmed foreign citizens who are now living and working in China, we also have reported their information to the relevant embassies or consuls in China, and so far, as far as I know, there's no Russian citizens, and it's a confirmed case. As of 18 o'clock, that is 6 p.m. yesterday, the total number of confirmed foreign citizen cases is 29 and 10 in Hubei, among which 18 have already been discharged, and there are also 2 deaths, and 9 are in isolation for treatment. I have to tell you that Chinese government attaches great importance to the safety and health of the foreign citizens residing in China, and we will treat them as our people and give them timely treatment. With China Daily, after the lockdown of the city, what are the considerations in terms of the guarantee of daily necessity supply, as well as medical supplies? Sufficient medical supplies is a fundamental guarantee to win this battle against the epidemic. Yesterday, General Secretary Xi Jinping have pointed out that we have to protect and respect and care about the medical workers in order to make sure that they can work in a safe and healthy environment. So to do that, the most important would be the guarantee of medical resources. The short supply of medical resources has once been the biggest threat to the safety of the medical workers and a roadblock that stands in the way of patients' treatment. And so far, with a joint effort, the shortage of the medical supply has been efficiently addressed to some extent. N95 masks and protective suits, take them for example. As of yesterday, the number of N95 have reached more than 330,000, and protective suits amounted to 111,000, which equals to the twice of all the capacity of producing these materials at the national level. Although we're still running a tight balance, that is, we have to still rely on a modulation on a daily basis. A lot of hospitals only have enough stock to last one day. But the protective materials of the frontline workers can now be guaranteed. So it's not easy for us to have such a big capacity within such a limited period of time. And only China, with this institutional advantage, can achieve that. After the lockdown measures were implemented, there will be a rise in terms of the demand for medical resources. So coming up, we need to still continue to increase the number, guarantee the quality, and protect all of those that should be protected. Increase the numbers. That is, release new capacity and mobilize resources from multiple channels so that the growth in terms of the medical materials can meet the demand of the increased hospital beds and human resources. Quality need to improve QC, especially that of the newly established enterprises as well as their products, and make sure that all of the medical materials are up to standard. Protect all of those that should be protected. So our first priority would be N95 and protective suits as well as protective goggles. But now, a lot of hospitals are running short supply in terms of caps, gloves, and boots. These are consuming goods. And with the increasing demand of treating the patients, more and more hospitals call for ventilators and cardio monitors or X-ray machines. These equipment will also be included in terms of our logistic departments. And fourth is to give special passes to the medical materials. So we are now working practically in a wartime manner. Saving life is our first priority, and speed is life. All supplies need to be expedited in terms of the process because we are racing against time. With Aumen Daily, there are a lot of discussions online as to the effect of TCM treating nCoV pneumonia. So do you have comments on that? Western medicine and TCM should work hand in hand with each other in order to address this problem. So we've been starting with this integrated treatment plan from day one. There are a lot of practices and that's shown that the effect to use this integrated medicine is useful and effective. It can ease the symptoms such as fever, fatigue, or sore throat. It can reduce hospital time and reduce the possibility of transforming into heavy syndrome. It will also reduce the possibility for severe cases to turning into critical cases and reduce fatality rate. In terms of recovery, one of the key factors is the number of limba cell numbers, and the use of TCM can substantially increase that. The TCM Bureau have kickstarted an emergency project to expedite the selection of TCM at the clinical level. We are also working with NHC to promote prescription to ease the symptoms. And our prescription has been proven to be very effective, and the 6th edition has been included this prescription as a general prescription. We have also kickstarted two subjects headed by academician Zhang Boyuan and Liu Qingquan. According to their study, TCM shown great effect in light syndrome patients, and their time for the syndrome to disappear is 2 days shorter than a contrast group, and the improvement rate for CT scan is 22% higher, and the possibility for it to transform into heavy syndrome is 27% higher than that of the contrast group. And the time for nucleic acid to turn positive is also 2 days shorter. And the oxygen needed time is shortened. The Lympia cell number has also been increased. In provinces like Guangdong, Zhejiang, they also have implemented this integrated medicine, and results have been quite promising. The Central Leading Group have made discussion with the 3 leaders, including the vice mayor of the city of Wuhan. So what kind of measures do the Central Leading Group take to urge the city to strengthen their work in prevention control? The Central Leading Group acted upon General Secretary Xi Jinping's instruction in terms of the guidance and supervision of the local prevention control work. We have taken multiple measures to urge the city government to do their work well. The Central Party Committee and the State Council must see to it that the measures are implemented at the local level. We came to the front line to supervise the work. Our group is headed by Vice Premier Sun Chunlan. She visited on multiple occasions the designated hospitals, the field mobile hospitals, and isolation locations, communities, and villages to do supervision and inspection. On one hand, we need to make sure that this kind of wartime commanding system is established in the city of Wuhan. During our coordination, we discovered that the commanding system's efficiency needs to be improved. If you're working in a normal pace instead of wartime pace, you cannot effectively instruct the soldiers to win this war. That's why we have to improve their efficiency and efficacy. Second, the Vice Premier also talked to some hospitals through video conferences, as well as regional governments, to inspect on and guide on their work, and to hold people accountable in their positions. and to promote the principle of admit all that should be admitted. All of the members of the leading group have our due responsibilities. We have done investigation and inspection in communities, in living quarters. We also have carried out conversations with the relevant cadres or leaders at multiple levels, including at the city level. There are a lot of problems with the way that some of the cadres carry out their work. Some of them are working inefficiently, especially when they are trying to transfer some heavy syndrome patients that causes some discontent among the people. So we talked to the leaders of Jianghan and the Wuchang region. In order to release signals that we will exercise maximum penalty to all of those inaction or malpractices in their work. Their first priority has to be the health and safety of the people. And third is to address the problems that is faced by the public. On multiple platforms, our friends from the media have been organizing reporters to come to the street and gather information on some of the missed out patients that had not been admitted. I can tell you that each problem that you have discovered, each clues that you've given us has been witnessed and has been scrutinized by Vice Premier Sun Chunlan, and all the patients are now being treated or being isolated in designated spots. We also carry out this undercover investigation or a service into the communities. We have sent multiple notices to the city level and the provincial level party or governing organs. We've taken notice that after arrival of Premier Sun as well as the leading group, you have raised the slogan to win this battle, but there are still situations that is due to the shortage of beds. Many patients cannot be hospitalized. And how many of the beds, hospital beds, can be provided, and are all the patients being treated right now? The shortage of hospital beds was an acute problem at an early stage. A lot of patients cannot receive timely treatment, and cross-infection happened, which is really a disturbing scenario. So under the guidance of the central leading group as well as Premier Sun, we have prioritized the work to admit and treat all of those that is in need. And we prefer to have spare hospital beds than patients that will not be admitted. We have formed working groups to make sure that we have sufficient hospital beds to spare. Here are some of the measures That is to two increase and one innovation. Two increases refer to the increase of designated hospitals and increase of field mobile hospitals. One renovation means that the renovation of the isolation spots into isolation spots for treatment. The designated hospital is expected to provide more than 30,000 hospital beds, and so is the field mobile hospitals. The isolated spots need to provide more than 10,000 beds. So altogether, that amounts to more than 70,000 beds. In order to improve capacity, we have made make altogether 700 millions in terms of investment. As of this morning, these two increases and one innovation effort has been proven to be very smooth, and all of the hospital beds are in place. Right now, altogether 24,000 hospital beds are in place, and 25,000 field mobile hospital beds are in place. And isolation beds amounts to 4,000. So, to meet the standard and requirement, we had to make sure that the designated hospitals and the field mobile hospitals can have more than 3,000 to 4,000 to spare and receive patients at any time. In order to do that, we have to have a very smooth and working logistics system. In terms of implementation, there are still some problems, especially when it comes to the daily necessities and grocery of the residents. How do you address that problem? We can ensure the basic daily necessities in terms of the total supply, but as you said, with the tighten of the control measures in terms of the delivery of these daily necessities, we're still having many problems that need to be addressed. We have to take effective measures to address those problems. Right now, we still have to reduce people's mobility, but the logistics have to rely on human resources and to some extent of personnel mobility. So we have to reach a balance in order to guarantee the supply. So there are four key tasks. First is to increase supply. Second is to make up for the gap. Third is to improve delivery. And fourth is to address the pain point. In terms of supply, the province of Hubei is a major provider in terms of the grocery, so it's highly self-sufficient and has large stock and reservation. But despite that, at the national level, we have to mobilize enough resources and make coordinations in terms of supplies. Recently, we have mobilized 2,000 tons of restored meat and 80 tons of rice and flour and 140,000 tons of oil and 3 million tons of sausages, more than 10,000 tons of frozen foods that is ready to be deployed. Second, to make up for the gaps, to address some of the systematic short supply in some regions, for example, the supply of meat and fresh vegetables, as well as the supply of milk powder. Effective measures have been taken to increase supplies in those regards. Third, delivery. To ensure that the grain passes are open for the transportation of daily necessities and without checks, without checkpoints, or without tolling. On a prerequisite to implement the control measures, we have to organize in order the restoration of the labor position in terms of the delivery industry. Fourth is to address the key issues, the key problems. On a daily basis, we monitor closely the market supply in the regions and cities in Hubei province and the price changes. And we also keep record on all the information that is given to us through multiple channels, short supply, abnormal price fluctuations, for example. If we found a case, we will urge that the relevant department addresses these problems. We are now at a special time, so there is still to be some abnormality in terms of daily supplies, but please rest assured that governments at all levels will be working to make sure that that problem is addressed. People are concerned with how to improve the recovery and reduce fatality rate. So what role does TCM play in that aspect? The early intervention of TCM and integrated medicine is the key to improve recovery rate and reduce fatality rate, and it's also one of the features of our effort. And coming up, we will realize this early intervention of TCM, especially to the susceptible group and the close contacts, in order to improve people's immunity and reduce infections possibility. Second is early treatment, so early usage of TCM in order to improve the recovery rate. And the second is the combination of TCM and Western medicine. TCM needs to play its unique advantages in this integrated treatment so that they can be reach a multiplying effect with Western medicine. Third, to take different treatment plans in different stages of treatment. So the 6th edition of a treatment plan is a comprehensive upgrade to the previous editions. Coming up, we will further implement and specify this mechanism and further optimize this mechanism and treatment plan so that it can play a bigger role. With Renmin Daily, and so far, in other provinces and regions, the number of confirmed cases is reducing, but the number in Hubei remains high. So, what is the general judgment of the current development of the epidemic? With a coordinated development of General Secretary as well as the Central Party Committee, the newly increased confirmed cases in places outside Hubei has been reducing for 16 days in a row, which is a great boost of confidence for us. But we also see some positive signals inside Hubei province, and there are some periodical achievement on a daily basis. The newly increased confirmed cases and suspected cases has been reducing from 4,000 a day to about 1,000 to 2,000 a day. And the number of suspected cases also drops from 16,000 a day to about 2,000 a day, which is multiple times of reduction, which tells us that with the reduction of suspected cases, the number of confirmed cases will also be reduced in the future. At the same time, with the excellent work of the medical workers, our medical capacity has also been increased, and we see a steady growth in terms of discharged patients. And in recent days, it has amounted to 500 on a daily basis. We are striving for a result for the discharged patients to surpass the number of confirmed cases. That will direct us to a better orientation. Outside Wuhan, in other cities in Hubei, we also see a drop in terms of confirmed cases and suspected cases. Many places we have realized this double-digit or even single-digit number of cases. So this development of the epidemic has been slowed down. With a joint effort of all powers, all parties, this trend hopefully will remain and will continue. We have passed the peak, and now we see a downward trend. But we have to realize that Wuhan, Hubei, despite all of these positive signals, are still facing with daunting tasks. In terms of treatment, we still have more than 30,000 people in hospitals, among which 8,000 are severe cases and 1,600 are critical cases. We have to prevent the Light syndrome from turning into severe and critical cases, and also prevent the critical and severe cases from turning into deaths and fatal cases. So we have to do this through scientific treatment and improvement of medical capacity in order to improve recovery rate and reduce fatality rate. We have to do that at the same time we continue our prevention control measures. So very daunting task ahead of us. And we have to pull through. And with bigger confidence and stronger will and more decisive measures, we will launch this final battle against this epidemic with the leadership of the Central Party Committee and the instruction of General Secretary Xi Jinping. The leading group will continue to stay here to address the problems, and we will not return until we have prevailed. The SCIO will continue to hold press conferences here in Wuhan. I want to thank all of the speakers. I also want to thank all the reporters for raising the questions.
刚才我们直播的是国务院新闻办公室在湖北武汉举行的新闻发布会，介绍了中央赴湖北指导组组织开展疫情防控工作的情况。我们也再次感谢手语主播尚醒3的同步播报。稍后战疫情特别报道继续。